Anybody else who I haven't met? I don't know. Are there any other guests here besides? No? Hi there. How are you? Okay, everybody else knows me. So that's good. Thank you for being here. Happy Monday. Turn to your neighbor, say Happy Monday. You guys ready to have some fun? These aren't saved. I have two right up here. Mr. Lloyd. You got two right over here? Yes. Another brother here. Good to see you, my friend. Okay. So, all right, how many of you guys want to learn how to get some more energy? Say aye. 10, 20, 30% more energy? How about 50, 60%? How about 300%? Ah, that's impossible. Maybe? Maybe yes, maybe no. We're going to find out. All right, so how many of you guys have been to the Energizing Nutrition Workshop before? A couple of you guys? Okay. How many of you guys have been to a workshop before? Raise your hand, just so I can see. Keep your hands up if you've been to 5 or more workshops, 10 or more workshops, 20, 30, 40 club, 50 club, 60 club, 70 club, 80 club, 90 club, 100 club. Hands went down. So 90 workshops, that's still pretty good, wouldn't you say? Everybody give them a round of applause. That's awesome. Wow, okay, so now you understand the Mickey Mouse Club. Yeah. No, it's the learning culture. We have a learning culture and a culture of learning and growing. When you stop learning, you stop growing, and you stop growing, you start dying. Yeah, so it's always going to be constant and never-ending improvement. You're always going to learn something new here. Doesn't matter if the name, the title of the workshop is the same. You're always going to learn something new. Tonight you're going to learn some new stuff. You're going to see some new stuff. I'm really excited to share this with you. Keep track. If you don't have one of these workshop cards, it tells you what's coming up. Next month, April, is cancer prevention. And I can tell you that this is probably one of the most, if not the most important workshop that you'll be to all year. How many of you guys know somebody who's been diagnosed with cancer, or you've had friends, family members? Yes. Yep. So you may want to think about inviting that person here, because if they're still alive, it could save their life. Because if they've had conventional treatment like chemotherapy and radiation, chances are at some point they're going to have another visitation from it. Because what people don't know is that when you use conventional things like radiation and chemo to kill cancer, you may kill the tumor, but you don't actually cure the cancer. The weakened part of that body is still ripe for another problem, and it usually comes back. If they make it within 5 years, that's still pretty good. But somewhere between 10 and 15 years, 100% of the time it comes back. So please think about the people that need to be here. Coming up, it's going to be on the 16th of April. Dial it into your calendars. All right, so what are we going to talk about today?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah?
Can I ask one question?
Yeah?
Don't each and every one of us has cancer in our system.
Everybody's got cancer. Everybody's got cancer. We have little cancer cells, but your immune system is what has to kill them off. And so if you have a condition of a weak immune system, or you have poor lifestyle choices and different little things, cancer gets a foothold. So we're going to talk about that, and we'll really peel back the layers on things like that. Absolutely. So the biggest thing that I see, number one clinical complaint, is what? Low energy. Yeah, fatigue. I'm tired all the time, Doc. How can I get more energy? That's what I want to talk to you about tonight. Where does energy come from? Dunkin' Donuts? Starbucks? Where does energy come from?
Good food.
Where does energy come from? Monster, energy drinks? Where does energy come from? The outside, or does it come from where? It comes from inside. But where inside? Does it come from your blood? Does it come from your heart? Does it come from your liver? Does it come from, where in the body does it come from? What part of your body makes energy? Well, you've got, trillions and trillions and trillions of cells. And all those little cells are supposed to be making energy. And some of us remember when we were back in school, we learned about that. We learned in our biology class about cellular biology. And we learned about, the components of the cell. The concept that I want to get to you today is, it's kind of like what you do when you go fuel up. When the last time you put gas in your car, you had a choice. You had 87 octane, you had 89, maybe 93. How many of you guys have ever seen like 98 octane? Have you ever seen that? So, they actually do. They put that in race cars. And don't ask me how I would know that. So when you put in low octane fuel, what kind of power does the engine make? Not very much. Not as good as it could be. But if you put in the high test, you put in the 93 octane, you put in the best, then how does your engine run? Yeah. So the question is going to boil down to what are you fueling your body with? In particular, what are you fueling your cells with? As the old saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. Well, we're going to really peel back the layers on this and see where it's going and what it's doing. And if you don't like the results that you're particularly experiencing right now, what can we do to re-engineer that recipe, so to speak? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, how many of you guys remember the mitochondria? That M word. Yeah. A long time ago for most of us here, but sitting in elementary school biology class, or junior high, whatever it was, they taught us about the components of the cells. And inside those cells you have the mitochondria, and the mitochondria is really important. Why? Because what does it make? Energy, yeah, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So all your energy stores are going to be created by these little bad boys. So everybody's got them. And the question really is, are they working or are they not working? And if they're not working, the question is, why are they not working? And there's a lot of different reasons. And the more reasons that you're aware of and the more options that you're aware of to fix it, the faster that you can get those results. How many of you guys want to see better results? Good. So we want to look at the mitochondria. And how does the mitochondria work? Well, you don't really have to know how it works. You're very fortunate. You're blessed that God made your body with an amazing wisdom, an amazing intelligence. Right? It's keeping your heart beating right now. How many beats per minute? You don't know. It doesn't matter. It's just that you trust and know that your body's smart. It's doing what it's supposed to do. So that happens everywhere in your body. There's an intelligence on board that's orchestrating and organizing what's happening in there, but it still needs the right fuel. So we have to make sure that all the stuff that's supposed to get into the cell is supposed to get through there. Now the gatekeeper for the cell is the what? The cell membrane. The cell membrane is the outer wall, and it's a bilipid layer. What is a lipid? It's a fat. So there's 2 layers of fat. And that's really important because, fat is a delicate substance, and fat is permeable. And fat needs to be permeable. Your cell membrane needs to be permeable so the good stuff can get in, right? So we can get to the mitochondria, the vitamins, the minerals, and all the stuff that it needs to be fueled. And then the mitochondria is it's like an engine. What does your engine give off? What kind of emissions? What kind of emissions? Imagine if you left your car in the garage running. Not a good recipe for success. We can all agree on that. Well, imagine if all the toxins and the waste products that the mitochondria create can't get out of the cell. Got the picture? Well, many of us are walking around like that all day long. And we have been for many, many years. And it's no wonder that we have problems with our health and our energy in particular. So the cell membrane is vital. I want to park on this whole cell membrane concept for a little while, because this one thing, if you get this, if you understand this, and you understand the strategies to work on this and work this out, it'll translate to benefit every level of your health. Your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your hormones, whether or not you store fat or lose fat, cancer, diabetes, everything, if you get this one concept. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. So we see 2 swimming pools here. And which swimming pool would you rather bathe in?
One on the right.
The one on the right. Why?
The other one on the right.
Because it's clean, yeah. So it's the same thing with your cells. If your body is the pool on the left, then there's obviously something wrong with that internal terrain. The cells are bathing in that, and the medium that they bathe in is either going to be balanced or it's going to be imbalanced. What's wrong with the water there? Why is it imbalanced? What's off? What's out of balance? The pH, very good. So obviously the pool on the right has a good pH balance. So I don't know what threw that pool pH off. All I know is that it's ripe to host fungus, yeast, mold, slime, right? And the pH that's being maintained in a healthy pool is not a good host for any of that stuff. So you're never going to see that. And so therein lies the difference between health and sickness and disease. So people send me emails and they tell me all the time about their problems, and they have these big, expensive medical terminologies that the doctors at Cleveland Clinic have put on them. You know, these words that you can't pronounce, these diseases that you've never heard of. You got to go on the internet and you look it up, and you're like, well, my daughter has this, this, and this. And my son, no, you don't understand. My son has this, this, and this. And it's like something that they've excavated, like from a, you know, oh my goodness, they've somehow come up with this thing. Thank goodness somebody found the diagnosis. Who cares they found the diagnosis? Did they find the cause? Did they find the cause, the source, and the root of why your daughter is sick or why your family member is sick? No. Diagnosis doesn't mean anything except a Latin description, a very expensive one at that, to describe the condition of what that person is experiencing with their health. Does that make sense? People come here all the time with the diagnosis and the testing that's been done with all their doctors, but they still haven't found the cause of the problem. Here's how I look at it. Here's how I look at it. I don't look at the human body like a medical doctor does. Like, I understand what a diagnosis is. You bring me those fancy terms. I went to chiropractic school. I studied physiology. I had the same courses. I know what that is. I can relate to that. But with me, how do I look at it different? You know, I look at the person either being unhealthy or they're healthy. Either the body's weak or it's strong. You know, there's no shades of gray. So if the body is sick, it's going to have different symptoms. And everybody's symptoms are going to be different. A person can collapse under stress, you know? Their body shuts down, right? You may have, you know, headaches. You may have dizziness. This person here, he could have back pain as a result of that. The human body is amazing in terms of how it expresses illness and symptoms and sickness. And it all comes down to a lot of which has to do with this. What are you allowing your body to exhibit? And what kind of conditions are you allowing to develop in your body? And are you okay with that? Are you allowing it to get worse? Or are you doing something to get better? Right? Now, for many of us, what does getting better mean? Oh, I'm just going to get some sleep, and maybe I'll take some vitamins, and I'll exercise more, and I'll eat better, right? But a lot of people do that. And we have more cases, more people have been exercising and having better nutrition probably in the last 10, 20 years more than ever in human history, right? And do we have less or more cases of cancer? More, yeah. Because we're ignoring basic concepts of human health and balance. And that's what I want to bring to your attention today. So human blood pH is very, very important, and it should be slightly alkaline. You know, if you want to clean up the internal terrain, if you want to create healing conditions, and I don't care if you have pneumonia, I don't care if you have an upper respiratory infection, I don't care if you have a kidney infection, and it doesn't matter if you have cancer. This concept applies. Your body's either getting weaker or it's getting stronger. You're either creating the conditions to host disease, or you're creating the conditions to starve it out of the body. That condition right there, health, means that disease cannot exist in an alkaline environment. You got that? Does that make sense to everybody? So we just need to be aware of what we're doing, maybe unconsciously, subconsciously, unknowingly, to create the conditions of disease, or we're doing things intentionally to starve disease out of the body. And that's the way that I look at it. That's the way that I approach it with my cancer patients. That's the way that I approach it with my patients who have a flu or a kidney infection. You're either getting sicker or you're getting healthier. And you know what? The symptoms have nothing to do with that. How many of you guys know you could take symptoms away at the drop of a hat with a drug, right? And just because you don't have symptoms, it doesn't mean that your body's not sick and diseased. There's a difference between how you're feeling and how you're functioning. There's a difference between how you're feeling and how you're what? Functioning. In order to have maximum optimal cellular function, you have to create the conditions for that to exist. You cannot synthetically, with a cocktail of pharmaceuticals, create that in the presence of that situation right there. Are you with me? Okay. So when we're eating, you know, the food industry and all their recommendations with processed foods, alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, you got artificial sweeteners. Somebody was at one of my workshops on Saturday. She's like, I'm doing good. I have a banana every day, and I don't drink soda anymore. I drink Diet Coke. Because I don't have the sugar. I cut all sugar out of my body. And she was at a cancer prevention workshop. And that was before the workshop started. So I didn't say anything to her because I knew she was going to get it. So these are all things which are highly acidic, highly acidic. And what you're doing is you're turning your body into the pH conditions that allow the fungus, yeast, mold, bacteria, viruses, and cancer to survive. And we want to move away from that, so what we want to do is we want to try to alkalize. Just so happens that it's a very simple concept. You don't put food by man into the body that God made. If you put God's food into his body, then it actually works out pretty good as far as the pH scale goes. Because what you're going to see is, the low sugar fruits like lemons, limes, tomatoes, avocados, and then the alkaline foods like cucumbers, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, spinach, peppers, highly, highly alkaline. And you guys know that these are good things to eat anyway, right? So we just have to eat more of them. More important, I could stand here on my head till the cows come home and tell you what to do and what not to do. But I think really what's more impactful and what drives it home is the why. You see? The why. Knowing what fuel goes into your fuel tank. You don't put diesel fuel into a gasoline engine. Hello? Yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing over there. So we put the right fuel, we put the high performance gasoline or put the high performance fuel into a high performance vehicle. That's you. Yeah. Because if you want to go the distance and you don't want to be sick and suffering, when I say the distance, you know what I'm talking about. Doing life. How many of you guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Life is, it's not always the easiest thing. Waking up, Groundhog Day, right? You got your family issues, you got your job issues, you got your Facebook issues, you got all this stuff going on. We got a ton of stress. You look around and you start watching TV and you look and read the newspaper and it's like, my gosh, look at where we are today and what kind of world we live in compared to just even 10 years ago. I remember when I opened practice in the 90s, it was like, looking back now, it was like watching Fonzie on Happy Days. It's like the world that we live in today is dark. There's so much, there's so many issues with that could potentially create so much stress. Okay? So when I say life, doing life, this is what I'm talking about. Being aware of our environment and the environmental forces, but being able to deal with that. Being able to deal with that stress. Because the stress is not going to go away, right? Right. It's how we deal with that stress. And we all have different mechanisms, but I can tell you one thing. When you have your health, it's a lot easier to do life than when you don't have your health. Would we all agree with that? Yeah. So these are the things that have to go into the high-performance vehicle. You need a high-performance vehicle to go through life these days. Otherwise, you get left behind. You get left behind. And so we don't want that to happen. We're moving in this direction, so follow along with me as we go to the cellular energy transfer system. We want to transfer energy, which means that we want to move it through your body as quickly as possible because these cells carry something called oxygen. What does it carry? Oxygen. How many of you guys know that oxygen is healing? Oxygen makes energy. You want less oxygen or more oxygen? More, yeah. So we got to make sure that this vehicle that's carrying the oxygen, these cells, are working pretty good. So on the bottom there, you see these little pluses. You know what those pluses represent? Positive charge. And they're underneath the cell membrane. So the cell membrane is sitting right on top of that. Inside the cells, it's positively charged. Outside that cell membrane, it's negatively charged. You see those black dashes across there? So the reason why your cells have a polarity is so that they can move through the bloodstream at a rapid pace, at a good enough pace to bring the nutrients and the oxygen through and deliver that energy through your body. So your body's electric. How many of you guys knew that? Yeah, your body's electric. You need energy, and energy comes from an electric charge. That's just a universal force inside your body and outside your body. So you got to have this set up, and it's got to be working right. And it just so happens that negative charges repel each other. And that's why you have negative charges on the outside of the cells, so that they repel each other. All right? So if I'm negative and you're negative, we're going to repel each other, right? We're not going to get too close. You're going to do your thing, right, Lord? I'm going to do my thing. You leave me over here, and let's just move along. Yeah,
You're doing your part.
that's
I'm
right.
doing my part.
Exactly. I like you. You bring that oxygen over there. I'm going to bring it right over here. Got it? Got the picture? Okay. So that's how a cell is supposed to work. It's supposed to be energetically charged in that fashion. Negative on the outside, positive on the inside. So here's what happens. We have our typical standard American diet, you know, soft drinks, alcohol, caffeine, trans fats, processed meats, artificial sweeteners. We got our more trans fats. And what does it do? It camps out at the cellular membrane because those things don't work very well with the receptors on the surface of the cell to take them in. So they camp out at the surface of the cell and they wreak havoc. They do something called inflammation. Everybody see that? Did you want to see that again? Yeah. Inflammation. You like that? Your doctor's got some talent there. So it's got inflammation, and what that inflammation does now is it deteriorates the integrity of the cell wall. It disrupts the integrity of the cell wall. And it can actually have that cell wall perforate or rupture to some degree and cause the positive charges to go from the inside of the cell now leak out to the outside of the cell. And when that happens, now we don't have that polarity where we repel each other. Now if you have positive charges on the outside, right, it's going to start what? Attracting. And if it starts attracting other cells and clumping other cells, then are they going to move through the bloodstream more quickly or more slowly? Are they going to move more oxygen or less oxygen? Are you going to have more energy or less energy? Okay, that's why this is part of the problem, a big part of the problem. Can everybody see that? Are you learning something important? Somebody has a question? Yeah.
Third object from the left.
The what? The third? Coffee? Yeah, coffee. Yeah, just spilling over. Just a weird picture. Yeah. Good question, though. You're very attentive. Keep me on my toes. So that's what it comes down to. So when we have all these fats which are highly inflammatory, sugars, toxins, bad fats, causes inflammation, it destroys the integrity of the cell wall, they start clumping up. You have fermentation in the bloodstream. Does fermentation sound like a good idea? No. And in fact, that's how cancer actually gets its energy. It no longer uses oxygen, it uses fermentation of sugar to create new cells. Did you guys know that? Yeah. So Otto Warburg was a doctor who won a Nobel Prize in 1931 who discovered that cancer uses the process of fermentation to fuel itself. Yeah. So this is a big deal. This is a big deal. It's been known for a long time, but not a lot of people focus on it. But if you start cleaning up the internal terrain, healing up the surface of the cells, you're going to start restoring energy and normal function, and you're going to starve cancer and sickness and disease out of the body. Does that sound like a good plan? Yeah. So what do we need to do to get that on the way? First of all, understand what you're doing and understand what's doing it. Sugars and anything that turns into sugar. Grains. And I'm talking about wheat bread, rye bread. Why? Because if you go over to Publix right now and you look at their freshly baked breads, wheat, rye, some of these other nice breads, you're going to find hydrogenated oils in most of them and all the chemicals that you have with the other breads. So you got to be careful. You have to learn how to read the labels, which I'm going to point out in just a moment. So grains are sugar because they break down into sugar, right? It's the same thing. Processed, white flour enriched, white rice, white bread, white potatoes. So all of these things, at some level, when we're looking to get on a healing diet or a healing regimen, that's what we should look at very, very carefully. Now that's not to say that you can't ever have a slice of white bread or wheat bread or go out for a nice pasta dish at your favorite restaurant. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm saying you could do that every once in a blue moon, but that's once after you've cleaned up a little bit. Does that make sense? So to get results, we have to take inventory of all this. Bad fats, hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated. What are those? Canola oil. Canola oil. I know it's hard for some of you guys. Canola oil. Yeah, so it's in that Smart Balance stuff. Dr. Yachter, how about that Smart Balance? It looks so smart. You know, it's just kind of like the Nutri-Grain bars. They look so healthy. Don't get past reading the labels. It'll show you everything that you need, right or right? Corn oil, canola oil, margarine, synthetic butters, vegetable oil, soybean oil. So when you start reading labels, you'll see all these things in them, and you know to do something else. The only oils that you should be really having, maybe avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil. Those oils are kosher. Those are good. Yes.
No olive oil?
Yes, olive oil. Olive oil.
I
Yeah.
thought you said just
Yeah.
virgin.
Extra virgin olive oil. Yeah. Yeah, I would stick with the extra virgin. Yeah. Yeah, you're worth it. You're worth it. You are. Yeah. Spend lavishly on yourself when it comes to good food. Okay, I got one more question, and then write the rest down so that we can do a Q&A at the end. Go ahead. What? Coconut oil, yes. Butter and ghee, yeah, as long as it's raw, grass-fed. Yep. And the rest of the questions we're going to take at the end, just so we can get through everything. All right, so all of these things, the sugars, the bad fats, the toxins, what do? They create what? Acidity and inflammation. Acidity and inflammation at the cell membrane blocks the nutrients from entering in, blocks the toxins from getting out, blocks the hormone receptors, and it can cause estrogen problems, it can cause testosterone problems, it can cause thyroid problems. All of your physiology gets thrown off at the cellular level right here. It destroys energy production. Mitochondria can't get the building blocks that they need to build ATP. So this is live blood cell microscopy, so you can actually see blood cells on the left in a normal, functioning, alkaline environment. And then the bloodstream on the right, you can see a little bit different. That's fermented blood, right? And look at the cells, how some of them are circular, and then some of them have like a starburst pattern. What is that? That's the disruption of the integrity of the cell wall. That's the cell membrane breaking down, and the charges escaping from the inside, and the polarity reversing, like we were talking about, because of the fermented, acidic, inflamed environment that they're in. So when we go back to the pool, remember I said which pool would you rather dive into? Which cells do you want your blood in? That's a good question, isn't it? So that pool that you were looking at, that green pool outside, could be the same type of environment that you've got going on inside. That's a scary thought, is it not? Yeah. So the question is, what do we have to do to go from right to left? What do we have to do to go from the right to the left? Well, we got to, again, have more of this and start looking at how much sugar we got coming in. Sugar is the most inflammatory thing. So start reading the labels. Look at the number of sugars compared to the amount of carbohydrates that are in your meal. So if you're having something that has 26 grams of carbs and it's got 26 grams of sugar, it's all what? It's all sugar, yeah, highly refined. So we know we need to transition and have less of this. And then when we start reading these labels, some of them, like I was saying on the Nutri-Grain bar, when you start reading some of these ingredients here, if you go through and you're reading 50 ingredients and you can only pronounce 5, what are your thoughts on that? It's probably not good for you. And the rule of thumb is if we can't pronounce it, it doesn't belong in the body. If it was made in the laboratory, it's probably not good for you. And when you start reading all these, you see high fructose corn syrup, made in the laboratory. Corn syrup, made in the laboratory. High fructose corn syrup, made in the laboratory. Glycerin, made in the laboratory. What did I just say? They're all sugar. It's all sugar. You keep reading. Natural and artificial raspberry flavor. Modified cornstarch. All sugar. Guys, yeah. Go down the line. Cottonseed oil, right? Partially hydrogenated soybean oil. Now, if you're not a label reader, and you go down the aisle of Publix, and you pick that up, Nutri-Grain. What does the word Nutri come from? Nutritious, which can't be bad for you, right? And then you have the word grain. Where does that come from? Green. Very good. Yeah, very good. So nutritious, green. That can't be bad for me. It's got to be good. Whoa, put it in the cart. But what did you just do? Going right back to that green pool inside of your body and your bloodstream, sapping energy instead of giving it to you. You see, and this all comes just from clever marketing. So we have to stand guard at the threshold of what goes through our mouth. And once we start looking very carefully at the labels, you'll be surprised. It may take a little bit more time when you go shopping, but you know what? It's worth it. And you'll find other things that are much better for you, much healthier for you. Okay, so when you start looking and reading these labels, you'll see they're loaded with not just sugar, but hydrogenated fats. Pop-Tarts, Pop Secret. Again, here you go. Kellogg's, protein, meal bar. Wow, that can't be that bad. Let's take it and throw it in the car for the road trip, right? What is it causing? Why? Partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, hydrogenated oils. Yeah, all inflamed, causing all kinds of inflammation. Driving cancer, raising your blood pressure, raising your cholesterol, raising your blood sugar, keeping you slave to medications for the rest of your life, keeping you coming back to the doctor's offices, keeping him in control or her in control instead of you, of your health. Does that make sense? Yeah. So let's talk about what we can do to work against that. Anti-inflammatory, alkalizing nutrition. What did we say? Water. When the fish is sick, you what? Change the water. When the fish is sick, what do you got to do? Change the water. You saw the pool, you know. Let's get some new fresh water in there. Your body is made of 70% water. So if you're not drinking enough water, if you are dehydrated, and you may not even be thirsty, guys, but if your urine is cloudy or yellow, you're dehydrated. You know, a good way to gauge whether or not you're hydrated is looking at your urine. If it's clear, that means that you're probably well hydrated. That means that you're probably drinking a lot of water all day. If you think you're drinking a lot of water all day and your urine is still cloudy, dark, or yellow, you're probably drinking too much coffee or too much of something else that's dehydrating you, you know, in spite of maybe the water that you're drinking. So you need to use that as a gauge, and a good gauge is about half your body in fluid ounces. And a good recommendation is finding like alkaline water. How many of you guys are aware that there's different types of bottles of alkaline water? You guys know that, right? If you're getting Dasani or something that was bottled in a Coca-Cola plant, chances are, if the Coca-Cola pH is acidic, their water is going to be acidic. As a matter of fact, Dasani water's been pegged at 5, somewhere around there. Where does your pH, where should it be? Your pH, your body pH? A little over 7, yeah. So buy yourself some water with a label that says 7.5, 8, 8.5, 10. You know, you can do that. Or you can take, spring water or filtered water, slice a lemon in half and squeeze the juice in. Or like a half a lemon, squeeze that juice in. That'll do the same thing, highly alkaline. Everybody should be having an avocado a day. An avocado a day keeps the doctor away. An avocado a day keeps the doctor away. That's my new thing, and it's so true because those are good, healthy fats which help to put out the inflammation. Those are good, healthy fats which are good for your brain, good for your cells, good for your energy, good for fat burning. So great for the avocados. Same thing with the butter. Just make sure, again, that it's grass-fed, it's organic, coconut milk. These are all the things. See the fire extinguisher down there? Nice guy, isn't he? Why is he waving to you? He's like, hey, don't forget me over here, because I'm going to be putting out that fire if you have all this stuff here, extra virgin olive oil. You go home tonight and you make your green beans or all your vegetables, turn it upside down and count to 3. At least. Do not stick a spoon in there and measure it out. Let the vegetables do the backstroke. Okay? Why? Because extra virgin olive oil is a healthy fat. You can't have too much extra virgin olive oil. We cannot get enough to keep up with the inflammation in our bodies. I'll tell you one thing. When I ran the Disney Marathon, if you didn't see, I hung it out there. My brother and I ran the Disney Marathon. This was back in 2003. And I trained for 7 months. And I knew it was going to be a big deal because I never really was a good runner. So I learned of a guy who trained Anthony Robbins, who, if you don't know him anyway, this trainer that I hired, he's in the book of records for the 1,000-mile race. In 11 days, he ran 1,000 miles in France, and I think it was in the late 70s. More recently, this was back in the early 2000s, as a fundraiser, he ran on foot from San Diego to New York, which was an average of 3 marathons a day. And he actually got adjusted in every state as he ran cross country. And so he worked with me. He loved working with chiropractors because they helped him a lot. So I'd get on the phone with him every week for 7 months, and he'd send me my workouts, but we never really talked about the workouts. All we talked about were really two things in the 15 minutes that I had with him on the phone. First question that he asked me, let me hear how much, what was your oil intake last week? Like, like I'm a car, like how many quarts? What do you mean? What are you talking about? I'm just kidding, but this is how important it was. The fish oils, the olive oil, all my fats. He wanted intake. He wanted a report card on how much fat that I was having. That's how I really knew how important it was in terms of anti-inflammatory, endurance, energy, and recovery. Remember this thing called life, guys? Can we all agree that we need as much endurance as we can get? That's why this is so important. And the other thing that he asked me was water. What's your water intake? How many liters did you have? Back then I was doing 5-6 liters a day because I was out running miles and miles and miles. So I can't tell you guys how important this is, because he wrote in his book all about the alkaline acid balance, and this was all part and parcel of me doing the Disney Marathon, and not just finishing it, but finishing it so strong and so healthy that I was in the office the next day and I adjusted like 300 people that next day. I wasn't bent over, in a wheelchair or on somebody's massage table every single day like every other runner was who just finished a marathon. I was in really good shape after running 5 hours and 26.5 miles. I felt really good when I was done with that. So I can't tell you how important this is. If you can do it like that with a marathon, why not apply this stuff to every day? How many of you guys want to feel your best every single day? Say aye. All right, good. Okay, so remember we need a transition here. So you all have seen this slide before. That food pyramid in the upper left, you got to turn on its head. You got to, all the breads, pastas, the rice, cereal, the 60% that they told us, that goes out the window. The biggest part, the foundation of your nutrition every day is what we just talked about, greens and good fats. What is it? Greens and good fats. And that's the last page in your handout you can keep for your reference. And so when we transition onto that fruits and vegetables and eggs and fatty fish, you've seen some meats there. Meat's acidic, unfortunately. So when I say meat, I say do it sparingly. And if you are going to do it, just make sure it's what? Grass-fed, right? Yeah. And almonds, walnuts, those are the good types of nuts that you want to have. Cashews, pecans, sunflower seeds, these tend to be a little bit more acidic. Safely, if you want to apply what we're talking about to this technology, even though they all have good fats, those nuts, I strongly recommend, and this is what I do, walnuts and almonds. I go to Fresh Market, I get a whole bunch of it, take it here, I snack on it all day. And then whenever I'm driving on the road, same thing. Raw, unsalted, unroasted. Raw, that's what you want. If you get the roasting and the salting, what are you doing? Acidifying it. All right, so just try to remember that. That'll help you also. Greens and good fats needs to be the bulk of your nutrition. I'm going to give you some supplemental recommendation if you guys want to apply any of this. Q-Best is CoQ10, and that's a necessary molecule for energy production in all of your cells. Particularly if you're a heart patient or you're on cholesterol medication, you have to be on this. Biogest is a distinct blend of digestive enzymes, which helps with gastrointestinal health. And again, when you're acidic, when you're under a lot of stress, and you're destroying the normal flora in your body, it's going to tank your energy. So this helps to regenerate that. For adrenal support, we have Phytozone. Why? Because what do you need your adrenal glands for? To help with energy. Yeah. When you're stressed out, that's the first thing to go. When your adrenals go into overdrive, it doesn't matter how many cups of coffee you have, you'll be yawning after all of them. So you have to restore your adrenal function, and that's why we recommend that. And B complex also, because B vitamins are at the very heart of a healthy nervous system, and B vitamins are at the very heart of a strong electrical system that your nerve system uses to fire on all cylinders in all cells. So that's why we have all those in your handout. You have your supplement suite. We always do this because we want to help you make application of. Some of you guys like to take supplements, which is definitely a good idea if you want to try to help yourself. And these are the ones that are relative to what we're talking about tonight. You get all of them, you get 20% off. And the thing, again, with Thorne supplements is that They don't have any binders or fillers in them, which everything that you buy at GNC and online does. So you may be taking a handful of pills, but you're passing them back out and your body doesn't absorb it because of the magnesium stearate and the binders and fillers. All the Thorne products that we have are completely 100% bioavailable, which means anything that goes in, your body absorbs and you get the clinical result. And that's, you know, something that I know from firsthand experience because I went to their laboratories. I flew across country. I know that for a fact. So the nutraceutical doctors there actually put these supplement suites together for the purpose of this workshop so that when you take them together, you get the amplified exponential effect. They're synergistic. They work the best together. All right, so I want to take a mental break, and what I want to do at this time is, I don't know, I have to see what I have to do here. Okay, so I want to recognize a couple people. And the first person I'm going to recognize is for perfect adjustment attendance. While Deborah is doing some maintenance over there. So perfect adjustment attendance, this is a pretty important thing. Why? Because if you miss your adjustments, if you miss one adjustment, what does that do to your healing progress? Throws it off, yeah. So the people who stay on track with their adjustments, we're so proud of them, and they get the best results. We really like to celebrate that. One of the folks that we love and appreciate, want to celebrate tonight, in particular, for perfect adjustment attendance, is Ozzy. Can you stand up, Ozzy? Stand up, Ozzy. Everybody give Ozzy a big round of applause. He's been doing a great job. Great job. You got it. Yes. Okay, I have somebody else that I want to bring up. I'll hang on to this and I'll let you guys know what you got to do. So, Bruce, can you come on up here for a second? Now, this is Bruce Landry, and Bruce was a patient originally. Bruce came in, and he's not shy, so I didn't even ask him before. No, I didn't. He loves to talk. So, Bruce originally came in back in 2010, I think, and a wonderful family who moved to Ocala referred him in. They're his neighbors, and saw him hurting, brought him in. He was on a cane. He was on 7 different medications. I was going to play the video testimonial of him sitting up on the table saying how he gave me his cane. He gave it to me as a memento. It's hanging on my wall. Got off all 7 medications. Had a remarkable recovery. And at the time, he was working, opening up Publix stores, working like a madman. And then just got off track. I didn't see him for a good number of years. And somehow he made his way back to the diabetes workshop back in November. So, you take it from there, coming back in November, just describe, I mean, I could tell you what he looked like. I mean, he looked like at least 10 years older than he looks right now. How many medications were you on when you first came back a couple of months ago?
First came back, I was on 9 medications. I was working, I finally had a moment of realization. I was working about 100 to 120 hours a week. And I just said, why? And my spine, I couldn't hardly move, and Doc put me on traction and got me straightened out. And I'm going round and round right now with my general practitioner, because like the doctor says, if you get healthy, you can get off all your medications. I'm now down to 1. I got off of my diabetes medication because it's in the ranges that you want. I didn't tell him that I've been off of it for about 3 months now. So when he's giving me questions to ask the doctor, and when I asked the doctor actually got pissed off this week because he's a learned doctor. But he couldn't answer some of the questions. And the basic thing is, it's within yourself to make yourself well.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, I wanted to give you one of these. Yeah, you're a true champion, brother. Thank you. So faith. Yeah, I mean, you got to have that vision, you know, and you got to know you have confidence, boldness, you know. So So there was a bunch of people, it was pretty busy earlier, and 3 or 4 people said to me, wow, you're really busy tonight. And there were kids like jumping all over the place, and all I thought was, well, that's a good thing, we're making a difference. People are getting well, they're getting healthy, they're taking fewer medications, and you know what? Look at all these kids who are getting adjusted tonight that are gonna grow out drug-free and healthy, and know where their source of health and healing and strength and faith comes from. And they're gonna stay out of doctor's offices, off of medications and antidepressants. And those are the ones that are gonna not find themselves in trouble with all the problems that we're seeing here today with the youth. So we are making a difference. And I want you guys to see that and understand that it's not because of me, it's because of a law called the principle, which is God's laws of health and healing. And they've always existed. And it's just sharing it with you. And you guys, you apply it little by little, you learn it and you apply it. And then there's results. And there's lives that change as a result of that application. Does that make sense? But my burden is for all the people who don't know this. That's why, I was at a place on Friday. I was at City Hall in Cooper City. I did a talk like this, and I did one at our church on Saturday. We're going to do another one on Tuesday, My practice is outside these 4 walls. My practice is God's children. The people that are hurting, sick, and suffering. And the more people, the busier that we see it here, the better it is. The better it is. The better it is. We'll always find a way to make sure that we can accommodate as many people who need our help as possible. And I'll never compromise on your quality of care or anybody else for that matter. Every life matters. Every life matters. So thank you. I appreciate that. So, all right, come stand up for me and turn and face the person on your right. And put your hands on their shoulders. Just wake them up a little bit. Wake them up. And give a karate chop. Karate chop. Good job, good job. We're going to turn around and love your other neighbor.
My turn.
All right. Good job. Karate chiropractic. Good. Karate chop. Awesome, awesome. Good job. All right, give yourself a round of applause. All right, heads up, heads up. Coming up. Coming up. Just want to make sure we got an AC check, guys, that it doesn't go off. Okay. All right, so let's finish up here. Are you guys learning something important tonight? I just wanted to remind you, when you post a Google review or a Facebook review, people read that and they're encouraged. And people go to chiropractors all the time. And sometimes they have a good experience, sometimes they don't, just like anywhere else. And what they don't know is that we do things very different here. So by you posting a 5-star review like that, you literally could be the reason, the tipping point for them to make their way here and have their life change. So I want to encourage you to do that. Please do that. Take a snapshot of it. We'll give you 25% off a gift certificate for any of the resources up there. And again, if you want me to come and speak at your place of work or worship, I have a lunch and learn program where we bring lunch and we bring a healthy message like this, a workshop. And businesses are doing it all over the country. And I'm just one of the providers here locally that is sponsoring that. It's a community service. So please let me know if that's something that I can help you with. If you see that valuable and you want to be a blessing to the people that you work with or at your church or your place of worship, please let me know. We'll set that up. It's a wonderful thing. So I want you guys to look at this guy. He's pretty scary, isn't he? That's a scary dude over there. Dr. Roger Sperry, neurobiologist and Nobel laureate in medicine. And so what he discovered was, and this was one of his quotes, better than 90% of the energy output of the brain is used in relating the physical body in its gravitational field, which is what? Posture, yeah. So 90% of the energy in your brain is used for what? Keeping you upright relative to gravity. Did you know that? The more mechanically distorted a person is, posturally speaking, the less energy available for thinking, metabolism, and healing. This is a Nobel laureate, guys. So how important is posture for your energy? One means the other, yeah. And And then he goes on to say 90% of the stimulation, and what's that word? Nutrition to the brain is generated by the movement of the spine. Are you learning something important here? Yeah. So whether you're standing and working all day or sitting, you got to realize what you're doing. You're either adding energy to the brain or you're sucking energy out of the brain. And that's going to affect your metabolism. It's going to affect your energy. It's going to affect your overall vitality, youth and vitality. Cervical kyphosis is the reversal of the curve in the neck. And they said it leads to spinal misalignment, rounding of the shoulders, headache, neck pain, scapular pain between the shoulder blades, and possibly even lower back pain. And that came out of a medical conference, team of orthopedists for thoracic outlet syndrome. Another conference, they published this. They stated head and neck posture is a major factor in what? Fatigue and immune function in patients suffering from fibromyalgia. So for those people who are always hurting and pain, they ache all over. They're tired. Their immune system is weak. Flus, colds, cancer. These are people with what kind of problems? Postural problems. And you can take all the drugs in the world. You can take all the supplements in the world. You can exercise till the cows come home. But if your spine looks like this, where's all that going? Down the tubes. It's all for naught. Your body's never going to function and heal properly because the brain is getting robbed of its nutrition because the spine isn't functioning and moving properly. Does that make sense? When you lose the curve in the neck goes straight and it sucks the brainstem down into the bony canal. The brainstem, remember, the brainstem is what controls respiration, your blood pressure. Okay, so these are all very, very important things when it comes to energy, which is what we're talking about tonight. So the question is, are you looking more like the one on the left or on the right? Oh, Dr. Yachter, I'm the one on the left. How do you know? Well, I feel good. I'm coming every week, every other week. I'm once a month. I mean, I'm doing my home care. I'm not doing my home care. Like, you're going by how you feel, right? But how many of you guys know people who feel great and God forbid they get diagnosed with cancer? You have no idea. Remember, there's a big difference between how you're feeling and how your body's what? Functioning. Don't ever go by how you're feeling. That's why, I'll redo an x-ray a year later. That's why we keep redoing these scans. Because I want you guys to feel good, but I also want to make sure that your brain is firing on all cylinders. Not just so you have good energy, but you're making new healthy cells instead of new damaged cells. So we got to check that top bone in the neck. We got to make sure all the nerve channels are clear, firing on all cylinders, because where do those nerves go? To some of the organs or all of them? All of them. When you have pressure on the nerve, can you feel that? No. And, only 6% of that nerve feels pain. But you put a little dime, that little weight of pressure on that spinal nerve, you've now shut down 50% of the nerve firing through there. And if that's going to your prostate, what's that doing? Making a prostate problem? If that pinched nerve is going to your bladder, what kind of problem are you developing? Bladder problem. Yeah, a lady come in the other day. She bent over to pick up a Bible. Back was killing her. She couldn't stand up. And I knew the problem was down here, where the nerves go off to the muscles in the leg and the sciatic nerve, but I also know those nerves go to the bladder. And my question to her was, are you having any constipation or frequent urination? Frequent urination? Why? Why are you asking me that? I've been going to the doctor for a couple of years now. They can't find out what's causing that. That's in the same area. Look at her spine, look at her x-ray, badly degenerated. Problems with spine's been degenerating long before she had any sort of back pain that she could feel. So chronic tiredness, dizziness, all that stuff, headaches, high blood pressure usually comes from the upper part of the neck. Digestive problems comes from the middle part of the spine. Problems with your lower back, frequent urination, constipation, bladder problems, circulation issues, usually from the lower part of the spine. I look at the spine like a circuit breaker. The channels have to be open. And again, the only way to know, besides how you feel, is to get a what? An x-ray and a scan. So again, if you're a guest here, this is really not more for you. If you don't have a chiropractor and you haven't had your spine checked in a long time, this is something that you can take advantage of. If you don't know the status of your spine, you're here tonight because your health is important to you, right or right? Right. Yeah. So some of you guys have been checked, maybe not been checked. If you haven't done it in a while, feel free to take me up on an opportunity or another opportunity, if you would like, to have your scan or an updated x-ray taken. All right, again, and it includes all that stuff. And again, the $40, that's a Mission to Haiti donation. So if you'd like to do that, see them at the end tonight, and we'll set you up for that. It's $300 worth of service, which I'm very happy to do for you. But it'll give you a ton of information regarding your health and whether or not your vitamins and your nutrition or anything is really working for you. It all depends on your spine. Everything depends on your spine. Right or right? Okay, so that's for the guests. The rest of us here, we need to take out the what? Garbage. Take out the garbage. What does that mean, take out the garbage? How many of you guys take out the garbage? Do you enjoy taking out the garbage? Detox. Who said that? You said that? Ah. Good job. So what's poisoning us today? Where are the toxins coming from? Yep, the food. So the food would be, the worst of it is glyphosate, okay, which I'm going to get to in a minute. And then you have lead, and then you have aluminum, heavy metals. And I want to talk to you about this because this now, through the research that I've been studying, is becoming the biggest problem for not just for the generations to come, but for us. You know, have you looked around lately and you've seen how young people are now when they're getting diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's? Have you seen that? Okay, this is the reason why. And if we don't pay careful attention to this and be proactive with this, then we're not doing something to prevent it, because we live in this world that's creating it for us right now. So heavy metals, lead and mercury, all drive inflammation in the brain. They trigger genes associated with what? Alzheimer's and dementia. They kill healthy intestinal flora, your bacteria, the bacteria that's needed for the neurotransmitters, and the vitamins that are needed to make serotonin in your gut. Serotonin is that happy hormone feeling, right? The serotonin is the happy neurotransmitter that makes you feel good. When people are on antidepressants, they modulate that, and they do that pharmaceutically instead. So what I'm saying is that these toxins interfere with the normal body functions, which cause us to feel poopy, poor energy, fatigued, hormone problems, and a lot of other things. And this is where it starts. On the left, you see what? The far left, you see a picture of what? Paints. And the paint, before 1978, had something in it called lead. Yeah. So we all grew up in the lead generation, and lead in the paint, and lead in the gasoline, up until recently, and it was all around us. But there's lead now. They did a study, and there was 33 different lipsticks that they used, and 22 out of the 33 had lead in them. And these are like premium brands, you know, like that you get Maybelline or any of these others that you would think of. And most of the cosmetics that we have, that we use, ladies, even men, it doesn't matter if it's shampoo, toothpaste, soap, aluminum in your deodorant, all of this stuff has heavy metals and cancer-causing toxins in them. Sodium lauryl sulfate has been shown to cause cancer in laboratory animals. Were you aware of this? Yeah, so we live in this toxic soup. What I'm trying to say is that it doesn't stop there. Lead's in our water. How many of you guys know we have lead in our water system? Yeah. Oh no, Plantation is one of the best water systems in the world. Hey now, come on now. I mean, if you do the research on this, there's more than 2,000 cities, the last time that they checked this, 2,000 cities across the country that have higher lead levels than Flint, Michigan. Yeah, so I mean, this is a reality. It's in our water systems, guys. So don't think that it's not, and they can't get it all out. And then on top of that, where do people flush their prescription drugs down? Down the toilet. And where does it go right into? It goes into our water system. Dental amalgam, right? How many of you guys have amalgam fillings? We all, you know, and if you don't have them, maybe you had them taken out, but you didn't get the mercury poison, the vapors, or the heavy metals out of your brain. That stuff's still sitting there. So this is important stuff. Then we have flu shots, vaccines. How many of you guys were vaccinated? I was vaccinated. How many of you guys were vaccinated? So if you live in the United States, if you were a baby in the United States and you weren't vaccinated, that's a weird thing. Like none of my kids were vaccinated, but that's intentionally because I knew that, right? But most of us were vaccinated. And what do they put in the vaccines? Mercury, thimerosal. And they're still in there, many of them. And what do they put in all the flu shots? Mercury, thimerosal. And that's why long-term studies have shown, they did a decade's worth of work on this, 850 peer-reviewed papers studied by world's leading immunogeneticist. He said if you've had 5 or more consecutive flu shots, your likelihood of getting Alzheimer's is 10 times greater. So you never want to get a flu shot, but again, we're listening to the news, we do what everybody else does, and this is all cumulative. It's filling up our bucket. The question becomes, when is your bucket going to overflow with all these symptoms from all this stuff? Amalgam fillings. How many of you guys had wear contact lenses? prior to the year 2000 in the late 90s, they had thimerosal in contact lens solution. Yeah, we didn't know that. Okay, so let me just end with the glyphosate. What's the deal with glyphosate? I went to Home Depot after we went out for dinner. We actually saw you guys that night. We went to Home Depot. We were at Ruby Tuesday, and we were out on the patio, and we saw you guys going in. I was saying, "Hey, Luther! Luther! Luther!"
That was you, huh?
My wife said, "Shut up! Shut up!" Like all the people are turning around. I'm screaming at the top of their lungs. He's just looking for a table, man. He's hungry as a horse. I don't know how I got off on that, but we went to Home Depot after Ruby Tuesdays, and my wife needed weed killer. So I look on the label, and sure enough, it says big bold letters, glyphosate. Glyphosate. What is glyphosate? It's the active ingredient in Roundup. What do they put glyphosate in? GMO products. And what do they use GMO, genetically modified organisms? They genetically modify these things, the corn and the soy, so that it can still live while they soak it in glyphosate. Everything else will die, except these crops survive because they've been genetically modified. Corn and soy, which they put in which foods today? Almost everything, which we're taking in. So we have a good, healthy diet of Roundup that we're living on. Do you think that's a good recipe for toxicity? Is that a good recipe for brain inflammation? Is that a good recipe for fatigue or depression or cancer? Yeah. I mean, it's, you go through any drive-through, any of these meats that we eat, everything. It's soy and corn, guys. Soy and corn. Oh my goodness, it's if you look at the graph, I don't have it in this one, but in my last workshop, you could just see the amount of glyphosate that they've used has gone from like, I think 20 million pounds to like 300 million pounds in the last 300 billion pounds or something like that. Thank Monsanto for that. But I don't want to get off on a tangent, but you guys get the point. It's bad stuff. It's really bad stuff. That's why you have to get GMO. But the reality is that when these toxins are all inside of us, they're attacking the brain, and what else do they attack? Thyroid. You guys know what happens to people who have thyroid problems, right? Especially with an underactive thyroid. The majority of the time, what happens? Your energy is, they could peel you off the floor with a shovel. It's bad. And your thyroid is a significant part of regulating your metabolism and your energy. Yes or yes? 1 out of 5 women get diagnosed with a thyroid problem. It's a big deal. Your body uses fat to store toxins. So the more toxic that you are, the harder it's going to be for you to lose weight. Your body will not release the fat because it uses it as a protective mechanism to sequester and protect itself from the damaging effects of these toxins. Did you know that? Yeah. So if you want to lose fat, you got to lose the what? The toxins. Toxins blunt the hormone receptors. Where are the hormone receptors found? On the surface of the cell membrane. What did we start off talking about tonight? The cell membrane. How important is that cell membrane? It's at the very root of everything that your body is going to do, energy-wise, health-wise, detoxification. How important is the normal function of that cell membrane? So you saw it to where you just saw the positive charges and the negative charges. You remember that, right? Right? But what you didn't see is the little hormone receptors that function to bring hormones into the cell. How many of you guys know somebody who's diabetic, right? If there's insulin resistance, what levels are running high in the blood? Sugar. So what happens? Insulin has to go up to take the sugar into the cell. And it takes it and it brings it to the hormone receptor, and that's how the sugar gets into the cell. But when somebody's insulin resistant, the hormone receptors are not working. It's not that insulin isn't working. Insulin goes up, your body makes insulin, but the insulin receptors are done. They're shut down, they're blunted, they're down for the count, and now the insulin can't get the sugar into the cell. Does that make sense? So that's how we're able to get people off of diabetes medication, reverse that, when you control that whole inflammatory process that's causing that. And that's what I want to share with you. So here's the cell, like we talked about earlier. Good stuff has to get in, bad stuff has to get out. All those little sperm-like looking creatures up there, those are the receptors, right? And you've got vitamins there like vitamin A, D, E, K, all of the things that get into the cell have a receptor to get in there. And then you have insulin, like I just talked about. You got estrogen, testosterone, thyroid. So there's, for all these hormones, there are receptors at the surface of the cell. So if your body is working right, it's going to make the normal amounts of those hormones, right or right?
Right.
Yeah. But what happens if you have inflammation at the surface of the cell? Even though your body's making the right amount of thyroid, T3 or T4, even though it's making, there's nothing wrong with your pancreas, it's having a normal hormonal response. If the hormone receptors are blunted because of the inflammation at the surface of the cell, can those cell receptors hear what those hormones are saying? No. So now the connection can't be made, and the DNA inside of your cell gets shut off, or it gets turned on, depending on what you've got going on. If you have diabetes genes, it may turn that on. If you've got obesity genes, bless you, it may turn that on. And this is where we get into epigenetics. What's epigenetics? How many of you guys know that only 5% of your health is from genes, like what your parents had? How many of you guys had, cancer running in your family, heart disease, right? Diabetes running in your family? Only 5% of that matters. 95% is epigenetics. And the epigenetic trigger is this. It's the inflammation, which is either going to turn those genes on or turn them off. It's your lifestyle. It's the environment that you're creating with these cells that are going to determine whether or not it flips on these genes or it flips them off. That's what's going to affect the DNA inside the cell, depending on the level of what? Inflammation. Are you guys getting this? Woo! Where'd that just go? That's heavy stuff, huh? Okay, listen. I'm not trying to turn you into a microbiologist or a doctor. All you have to know is you got to get rid of the inflammation. You got to heal up the inflammation, and you got to get the toxins out. Because if those mitochondria are have waste products, not only can they not make the energy that they need, but the little that they do make, there's byproducts, there's waste that it can't get out. And that's a big problem. So we have to fix this at the cellular level. All healing happens at the what? Cellular level. If you want to get well, you have to fix the cell. You can eat good and exercise till the cows come home, but if you don't get down to the cellular level and pull this stuff out, it's never going to be right. So like I said, all this stuff is cumulative over years and decades. And it gets worse and worse and worse. We go to all these different doctors. They check your thyroid. Oh, your thyroid's working fine. Hormone levels are fine, But they still give you bioidenticals. Your pancreas is working fine, but they still give you diabetes meds. And now we're finding out the reason. Hormone dysregulation, depression, mood changes, fatigue, weight loss resistance, all that as a result of the inflammation. So the real question is not, are you toxic? The real question is what? How toxic are you? And if you haven't had an opportunity to find out how toxic you are, I encourage that you do, because I did. And it was quite an eye-opener. Okay? So one of the things that affects your vision and your ability to distinguish contrast is toxicity. It affects the optic nerve. And so when you're highly toxic, you take a visual acuity test, a sensitivity test. And if you're toxic, you will fail that test. There are lines that go in different directions, and you'll be surprised at where you fall down and fail. And I went down hard. Yeah, I went down hard. But I started doing the detox program, and then I got retested a month later. And didn't I do better?
Yes.
It was a lot better. So this stuff is real, guys. So that's one of two tests. There is a questionnaire that'll help us also. But the visual contrast sensitivity test, that's a real thing. Many physicians use this. We actually have that instrument, and we can do it here in the office for you. And this meta-oxy test is it's a urine test. Basically, again, we do it right here. It's a little bottle, has a reagent in it, a reactionary reagent in it, and you put a little bit of urine in there, and when it reacts with the reagent, it'll turn a certain color, and that, depending on how dark that color is, it'll tell how inflamed your body is. Okay. Now, this test is literally, it's 50 times more accurate than a blood test. And most of the time we spend thousands and thousands of blood tests which don't define the cause. They don't show us the cause of the health problem. They only tell us what we have, but they don't tell us how to fix it except with drugs. But these tests are highly accurate because when you retest, after you actually do an effective detox, pulling the toxins out of your body, then when you retest, you have objective evidence. Not just by how you feel, by how your body is what? Functioning and working. And that's important. So that's what will help us determine literally how toxic are you and if you really need to detox. I mean, I think we all need to detox on some level regularly. How many of you guys do the Mediclear? Mediclear is, I mean, it is so tasty, it's wonderful. We use it for smoothies in the morning or at lunchtime. You could do fruit smoothies, you could do vegetable smoothies, kale, cucumbers, avocados. There's so many different things that you do. The important thing about the Mediclear is that it's a protein source, and it's got all the vitamins and minerals and antioxidants that you need, and it also has two things called N-acetylcysteine and glutathione. Has anybody ever heard of that before? Those are things that boost your liver and your kidneys to help detox, but it's a very gentle detox. It's a mild detox, and so it's a very, very healthy thing to do. And I've been doing that for a couple of years. But it only detoxes on a superficial level. Is it good for you? Heck yeah, it's good for you. You'll feel good on this stuff, and because it helps to control your blood sugar also. And it's one of the healthiest things that you can do. I would recommend everybody have it, especially for breakfast. And once you start doing this, it eliminates the need for a multivitamin, and it eliminates the need for you to shop and spend money on food for breakfast. So it's a pretty good ROI from that standpoint. But again, it's superficial from the standpoint that it won't get the deep metals out. If you have heavy metals that are in your brain and you're toxic at a deeper level, it's not going to work for that. Because true detox, let me tell you what it is and what it isn't. Glutathione is important because it protects the brain and the cells, but it's not good for heavy metals. It won't pull the metals out of the deeper tissues or your brain. Is everybody with me so far? That's why I'm going into this. It's estimated that 98% of heavy metal detox is what? It's not effective. And so most people never get to experience true detox. You could do a 10-day cleanse or a 10-day fast. There's so many different detoxes you can get anywhere, anyplace, anytime. And all those binders do is they're weak binders, and what they do is they whip up all of the toxins in your body, but they don't actually pull them out. And if they use pectin and some of these other things like herbals, chlorella, they're weak binders. They don't actually pull them out. So it's like one of those street cleaners. You know, you see how the brush goes around and it just sweeps it off to the side of the street? That's what these detox programs do. It wasn't until I came across one of my peers, a colleague, who was telling me about this. And I knew Dr. Pompa from 10 years ago. I studied with him, I trained with him in another program. And I used to use some of the resources that he had, and I remember how good I felt when I was on those resources and those toxins, detox programs. So a number of years went by, and they developed something much more highly advanced. And this is what it comes down to. There's a 3-step program, and it's a 90-day program. If for those of you guys who are not aware of it, this is how it works. There's 3 different things that have to happen. It's not just a 10-day fast. It's not just a cleanse. This goes very, very deep. So the first phase, there's 3 components. Obviously, you gotta fix the cell, but you also have to fix the lymph nodes, the kidneys, the liver, and the gut. All the detox pathways. And then the other thing that you have to do is actually get that stuff out of the body. After you pull it out of the brain and out of the gut, how do you get it out of the body? Like, what are the true binders for actually this stuff to get mopped up in your intestines and pull it out? You know, to get it from your gut into the toilet, that's got to happen. And unless you have a strategic evidence-based plan that's going to do that, it's not happening and you're not detoxing. So there's 3 different phases. The first phase is the first 30 days. That's when you do the prep phase. There's cellular healing going on. It heals and repairs the cellular membrane. It reduces the inflammation. It restores the energy, reestablishes methylation within the cell. It gets the cell ready, and all the pathways, the downstream pathways like your liver and your kidneys and all that, ready for a deeper level of detox. My first month when I started doing this, just the prep phase, I felt the best that I had felt in a long time. It was like an awakening and like a calm peace over me for like the majority of those 30 days. Because I knew there was healing happening at a cellular level. I knew that. So and then I got retested. And what did my meta-oxy and my visual test show? Like Deborah just said, it got what?
Better.
It got better. So I knew something was happening, not just because I was feeling better, but because the test showed it. And then I went into the second phase, which is the body phase. Now this is different. Now there's a concentration gradient set up. What does that mean? It moves things from a higher level of concentration to a lower level of concentration. So it starts actually mobilizing the metals and the toxins from the deeper tissues in your body. This one, everybody responds different to, because you start using other agents which actually push stuff out. And if you've had stuff that's been in your tissues and cells for a long time, and you start waking that up, everybody responds differently. Like for me, I had a little bit of a weird response. It was like, I felt like I was getting sick. I had this weird thing going on in my leg. It was like, what's going on? Lasted for a couple of days. I backed off the drops a little bit, and then it went away after a couple of days. And I stuck with it. And each of these boxes, by the way, it's like they're all the supplements are prepackaged. You have a morning packet, you have an afternoon packet, and you have an evening packet. And you have these little drops when you go into the second phase. So everything's prepackaged. You don't have to sit there and count pills and wonder what to take in the morning. Everything's labeled. It's done for you. It's a brilliant system and it's super easy. So that's the body phase. Now you're really starting to detox from a deeper level. Get retested, again, the meta-oxy and the visual acuity test. And then the last phase that you do is the brain phase. The brain phase is what? Where you actually cross the blood-brain barrier. So crossing the blood-brain barrier can only be done with the constituents and the supplements in this program. It can't be done with pectin. It can't be done with glutathione. It won't get to the brain. It won't get the heavy metals out. This is the most important phase, guys. Detoxing, any sort of detox is probably not a bad idea. But when you want to get the mercury, the lead, the aluminum, the glyphosate, which pushes all of those heavy metals through the blood-brain barrier, it drives that. If you want to get to that, if you ever want to get to that level, you have to get to the brain phase. And it's been said that most people will have to do multiple brain phases because many times it takes years to actually completely 100% detox, folks. And I don't know that. I'm on my first brain phase. I'm going to take a week off because I'm going away next week. When I come back, I'm going to do another one. I'm going to get tested also. So again, you're not going to get well if you don't remove the brain inflammation, and heavy metals are the #1 culprit. That brain phase is vital. Okay, so if you have not done the testing yet to see how toxic you are, and you want to learn a little bit more about the program, what it looks like. Remember I said it's a 90-day program. It goes in phases. We run the program. Everything can be done here in the office. We do the follow-up testing here in the office. We can tell you more about the program, but first see if you're a good candidate for it. First do the testing. That's what I would recommend. Normally the testing is $300. We get special pricing because we're an affiliate office with True Cellular Detox. Many dozens of doctors using this program in their office across the country. So we get special pricing. We can offer you the testing for only $97. Deborah, everybody knows Deborah, right? If you want to have the testing done, set an appointment. See Deborah tonight. She'll have you fill out a form, call you, make an appointment. If you're a guest here tonight and you know that you need to have your spine checked, the scan, the x-rays, everything that goes with that, you can see Deborah or Kelly. They'll make the appointment for you tonight. The offers that we're giving you here tonight for the discounts, all that stuff. It's only good for tonight. And by the way, if you have a loved one, family member, friend, who you know should have been here, and you want to give them a gift of health, you're welcome to, purchase a voucher or something like that for them as well. So I think that's all I got for you tonight. Just make sure that you dial in for next month's workshop. And I can't tell you how appreciative I am that you were here tonight. I love and appreciate you so much, guys. Thank you. Have a great night. God bless.